U.S. academic talks about true story between Japan and Korea. In this article, which was recently featured on MSN Sankei News, U.S. academic James E Auer, director of the Center for U.S.-Japan Studies and Cooperation at the Vanderbilt Institute for Public Policy Studies, writes about his take on the historical relationship between Japan and Korea. Interview with James E Auer. Let's talk about the true story between Japan and Korea.
Last month, I visited Seoul for 3 days with an invitation from an elder statesman who is a strong supporter of President Park Geun-hye. I asked to meet Korean politicians, government officials and businessmen, and was also invited to visit the Korean naval base on the northwest coast. Unfortunately, most Koreans I met had negative opinions about Japan.
Comfort women not unique to Korea.
I asked why opinions have obviously changed since the agreement in 1998 between Japanese Prime Minister Obuchi Kaizo and Korean President Kim Dae-jung, when they agreed to put an end to past problems and released a joint statement saying they will look towards the future instead. Most Koreans I met said that their stance had not changed since 1998. Instead, they said that their current attitude is a reflection of the inconsiderate Japanese who continue to raise problems about the comfort women issue, the visiting of the Yasukuni Shrine by Abe's government officials, and the Japanese position regarding Takeshima Dokdo. I said that none of the current Japanese, Korean, nor American leaders have forgiven the prostitution that happened in China until the end of the war in 1945. Although we do not have the exact numbers, it is possible that the number of Korean women that provided sexual service to Japanese soldiers who were sold off by their poor farmer parents or were recruited by other means, were a lot more than from other countries, including Japan and China. However, it was not a campaign that targeted Koreans in particular, and there is no doubt that Japan sincerely regrets the true pain suffered by women of all nationalities that were part of this enterprise during the war. At the time in Japan, prostitution was legal, and sexual services were provided towards the U.S. Armed Forces during the American occupation. This is not to say that what happened was right, but to show that the standards back then was very different from what it is now. I said that the reason why Japanese leaders go to Yasukuni Shrine is not to praise Class A war criminals. Neither do they go there to praise the fact that Japan has apologized to other countries. I said that for a country that hates to be criticized over trivial internal matters as done by the Chinese government, it is hypocritical to criticize Japanese politicians for visiting a shrine that pays respect to the Japanese soldiers that died for their country.
Yasukuni and Arlington are the same.
Many foreign leaders, including Japanese and Korean leaders, as well as the President of the United States, visit the Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia, U.S. That is despite the fact that within the soldiers that rest there, there are some that fought for the South that supported slavery. Today, most developed countries do not permit slavery. However, there is no one asking to remove the soldiers of the South that supported it from the cemetery. The most problematic issue when talking to Koreans was Takeshima Dokdo, stating that I do not think it is likely that the Japanese will change their stance regarding Takeshima Dokdo as they have the advantageous legal foundation. I asked why the Koreans are so worried about the issue, even though it is very unlikely that Japan should send their self-defense force to the island to expel the Korean soldiers. The only answer that came back was that the Koreans think that the Japanese should agree that Takeshima Dokdo invariably belongs to Korea. I met just one group of people who did not complain about the Japanese. It was when I visited the Korean naval base. I saw the corvette ROKS Cheonan, patrol combatant craft that was sunk by a North Korean torpedo. Though the South Korean naval officers never talked politics, they spoke realistically of the necessity to cooperate with the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force and the American Navy against the North Koreans, who are acting dangerously and unpredictably.
The contribution of the Sino-Japanese War and the Russo-Japanese War to South Korea.
What can be done to improve the stance of Koreans? One of my students who was born and lives in Seoul since graduating from Vanderbilt University over 20 years ago, said that the Japanese will have to be patient until the Koreans grow out of feeling inferior. Unfortunately, that may be true, but I expect that President Park will be able to be on good terms with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Although the Japanese never say this, I think that for South Koreans it is worth thinking of the fact that Japan won against Manchurian China in 1895 and again won against Russia in 1905 for the same reason. Although Japan was not against Korea, they were scared that Korea would be occupied by Manchurian China or Russia. If Manchurian China had won the war, Korea may have been a Chinese colony now, or if Russia had won, a Russian colony. In the end, the Japanese victory led South Korea to the position it enjoys today, a free market economy and a democracy.